Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Stan Wirth. 402-228-5923 if you have a question for the mayor today. Good morning, Stan.
Morning, Doug.
Nice morning.
Absolutely
Well,
beautiful.
Stay just like this through August. It'd be just fine with me.
And no wind,
Yeah.
as opposed to what we had over the weekend.
Tell you what, the Memorial Day holiday weekend, a little breezy. It was those flags were flapping fast.
Yes,
in
they
the
were.
wind at the courthouse and the Veterans Memorial Park there. But if you have a question for the mayor today, 228-5923, give us a call again. And one of the things, getting to the end of this week, is transition of leadership in the police department.
Right.
It's arrived very quickly here. Chief Bruce Lang is going to join the Stan Wirth Retirement Club here.
Yes. After 30 years, Chief Lang is going to hang up his badge, and he is going to do what he has wanted to do for a long, long time, and that's just get out and participate in some of the recreation areas of our country. And the new chief that has been on duty now since about May 15th, John Hickman, is more standing by as an observer at this point, but as of the end of the day tomorrow, Mr. Hickman will be our chief of police, and he'll have the reins and will guide the department through hopefully another 30 years.
Public safety is one of the most important things cities do,
That's
and counties.
number one priority.
And this doesn't happen very often because you've been fortunate to have a person who's been with you 3 decades, and you want some stability there, of course.
And Chief Lang has been an extremely stable force for the department, led the department admirably, and has also been a stable force in the community and a good representative of the community.
And I think tomorrow afternoon there's a little get-together, 2 to 4, at the
There is
police department.
at the police department. Going to present him with a variety of things, maybe. But we're going to get together and certainly wish him well, and certainly wish Dawn well, because.
Yes.
You know, she's been retired now for a little while, and now she gets to put up with him on a daily
It's a
basis.
sacrifice there, huh?
Somebody's going to make it.
Yeah. Well, we wish Bruce and Don all happiness and long retirement and everything.
Absolutely.
And it's a big change in people's lives, and I'm looking forward to it myself one of these days.
Just make sure you have something to do, Doug.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. One of the things you had going on Ella Street, kind of the drive-through update by city offices there, doing a little bit of improvements there, right next to the police department. How's that been going?
It's going real well. Actually, the entire driveway now has been poured. Certainly going to wait for that curing process to occur. My guess is that Monday morning it'll be open for service.
Walked by there the other day, and it's kind of built a little bit more to drain out of there. It looks
Right,
like.
it is. And I think that was part of your issue, is that you had water standing there, and over time that compromises the concrete through the heaving and the thawing, and that water gets down into those cracks, and it causes all kinds of issues with concrete.
Nobody stopped paying their bill, did they? Because of the
Gosh, I hope not.
need that revenue coming in. It helps with getting things done. So yesterday at the Beatrice Board of Public Works, and I'm sure you'll probably get a report on it Monday night's City Council meeting as well. The recent Clean City large item pickup campaign. Of course, you just had one not all that long ago when you
About
tried
8 months ago.
fall campaign, but numbers were understandably down.
They were down about half from where they were the previous year, and total man hours were down about half also. The cost was $10,000 less than what we had the previous year. But again, it had to do, we think, for the most part, because just 8 months ago we had another Clean City in the fall. We're going to probably continue this schedule in subsequent years, where it is going to be in the month of May. And the Mattress Dropoff situation that we changed, where it was taken to the recycling, not the recycling center, but the compost site, probably will continue. And I think it worked really well, really had no pushback from individuals verifying where their residence was and where those mattresses were coming from. and it stopped some of the large loads of mattresses that were coming in from out of county and out of state.
You know, the other thing you always kind of wonder about when you go into this and you make a change, is it going to prompt maybe some discarding of things in areas outside the city? That didn't really happen.
Really didn't. There was I think, a mattress that was in the middle of a street, and it probably blew off. There was, I think they found a recliner in one of the greater ditches. City employees picked those up. But I think those were the only two instances of anything that was discarded. And the hours were from 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday at the compost site. That certainly is ample time to get rid of what you need to get rid of in a timely fashion.
And isn't it nice not to have to then deal again with the mattress issue again? Because it's been kind of a trial by kind of experimenting with different locations.
Sure.
And I think this one probably worked as well.
I think it worked best, and I don't know that there were any complaints whatsoever.
This year you had the registration deadline, I think, noon on Friday ahead of the Monday through Wednesday project. How did that work overall, kind of setting a deadline to make sure people get in? Or because I know there's always some people who will say, well, I didn't hear about it, or I didn't read about it, or I didn't know the regulations.
And I think you're always going to have that, Doug. It was promoted very well by the media. It was promoted very well on our Facebook page, on the city's website. I think you're always going to have instances where the neighbor puts something out. You think, well, maybe I better put something out. They're going to come pick this stuff up. If you don't register, we're not going to pick your stuff up because we don't know for sure whether or not you intended us to pick that stuff up.
Does it ever amaze you how many large items are generated each year? I mean, you'd think after a while the pile would get a little smaller, but it doesn't seem to.
It's just like everybody. We all have stuff, and we all have stuff that wears out. And you try to get rid of the stuff, and this is really a convenient way to do it, but you got to follow the rules.
Yeah. Not a lot of cities do this, do they? I mean, there's other ones that have
Fairbury
some
does
version
it.
of it, I suppose.
I think Fairbury does it, and I think there's a couple of other small communities in the state of Nebraska that does it. We do it because it's a heck of a good service, and it gets rid of stuff that may be setting someplace else outside that is a bit of an eyesore. Just a good way to continue to clean up the community.
I suppose a lot of smaller communities and villages hold like maybe a one-day thing and do the same thing, but just kind of condense it down into a project they can handle.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody that does it over a 3-day span and then have cleanup on the 4th day.
Yeah, all right. 228-5923. Questions for Mayor Stan Wirth. Give us a call today on KWBE. Back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Stan Wirth today. Well, we are into the construction season for public projects around the area. I know recently just did the maintenance procedure on armor coating some city streets, but there'll be some other projects that are yet to come. One of them, I know the big reconstruction project, one of them this year is 4th Street and a portion of Lincoln Street.
4th to 5th.
Is that
on
about
Lincoln,
ready to get
Lincoln to
underway?
Grand. Yeah, it is. Actually, Team in Construction is the one that is going to do the work. Pre-construction meeting was held, and timeline is probably sooner than later. I think once the work at the city offices where they're doing the drive-through work is completed, then they will hopefully subsequently move over to that location and start removing the concrete and pouring new.
Any other street projects of note coming up in June or July?
There's some armor coating that has been completed. There was some work on Lincoln Street just recently, some armor coating where they poured the tar-based substance down with a aggregate on top of it. That has been completed. There is some work later this fall on 11th Street. I think there is going to be a mill and overlay from Lincoln to about Monroe Street, but that's probably not going to happen this year. But the ADA ramps will be done probably later this fall, around maybe October. Anytime you remove a surface of a street and a mill and overlay qualifies, then all of the ADA ramps need to be reconstructed, and so this company will bring in their concrete crew to do all the ADA ramps.
I see. Water department, I know, has been in the past months been doing some work out in this neck of the woods around KWBE. Some service lines out here, and I think a couple of water mains. But anything of note coming up in either the water or electric departments here over the?
They have some work going on, Doug. Again, it's not converted to long-term memory exactly where they're going to be when. I do know that the lead and copper rule is something that they're continuing to work on. There was in everyone's Board of Public Works bill about a month ago a little bit of a survey on what they thought the entrance to their water line to their house was, what it was made up of, if it was lead pipes, if it was copper, if it was PVC pipe. And they are looking at going through some of those responses. The last I heard, they had some 1,200 responses returned. 36 thought that they had a problem. Of those 36, they didn't have a problem. But there's some 5,700 households in Beatrice that we need to get some type of response from at some point in time. And if the residents don't know what they have, city crews who will be well identified with identification can enter your house and make a really quick determination of what you have or don't have. And this all stems from the Flint, Michigan issue when they had lead pipe situations that contaminated their water.
And just about every city has to kind of deal with this.
Everybody does now.
Yeah, so
it's a mandate that you have to deal with, and the city is responsible for their line on the city's property, and the resident is responsible for their lines.
I see.
But my guess is there probably is not as many lead pipes going into residences that we may think.
I see. I think it's coming up here this month or maybe next month. You're kind of moving along in the process of the Lincoln Corridor project as to getting a report or some final recommendations or from a consulting firm. What's the timeline on that?
I think we should have something yet this month as kind of what their proposal would be. Once we get that proposal, what that design may look like, then you go out for cost estimates to find out what the bottom line is going to be, and then we, as a council and city administration, need to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
And that's going to be a big cost.
It'll be a
one
big
of the
ticket
bigger
item.
costs that you've seen on some projects.
It will be.
Yeah.
Now, there are some ARPA funds that we could utilize for this project, but there are also other projects in the community that we'd like to take a look at and try to do at the same time, but the money will only stretch so far. Lincoln Street is something that is going to continually need to be maintained. It's asphalt now. It would be probably a good idea to make it concrete, just so that the maintenance is held down, because as we've got about 4,700 cars daily that goes on that street. It doesn't take very long to deteriorate a street with that much traffic.
Then, of course, you got the school project at some point, probably July, I think they were talking about possibly groundbreaking
Right.
on that. And you have 33rd Street on the east side of that site. What's the plan there right
So
now?
we probably wouldn't do anything with those streets until the construction is wrapping up, only because some of the heavy equipment that goes in and out of there is going to deteriorate even a newer street, or at least lessen the life of that newer street. So that is something that, again, we're looking at. There's going to certainly be a design of what that is going to look like. 33rd Street is going to be a major undertaking. because it is you have steep sides on both the east and west, and that street will be contoured and lowered to make it a little more, I guess, agreeable, probably to 3 lanes as opposed to just 2 lanes. When I say 3 lanes, you'd have a turn lane that would go into the school property. So there's a lot of design work that will have to be done, but we're going to have to do it sooner than later if we're going to plan ahead and get a contractor on board, even if it is in the year 2024. Certainly going to need a contractor on board to take care of that process.
You know, as you drive out there now by that site of the school, you can see where it's been planted and not planted, so you kind of get an idea where the school's going to sit in a pretty good-sized section of that 90-some acres, kind of the northern third of it. So kind of gives you an idea what you're dealing with for now.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good point. Planning ahead so that the individual who is renting that ground doesn't have to sit there and watch his crops being torn up after he's put them in.
All right. We'll be back at wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Stan Wirth. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Stan Wirth. We were talking about work that's going to be going on this summer. A couple other things just to touch on. You mentioned a sewer project at...
Around 14th and Lincoln Street. Okay. It is actually a private line that serves, I think it's 5 houses. And there are issues with that actual private line. City really doesn't have anything to do with a private line. However, neither did these individuals when they moved into this house. It is something that is many, many years old. And to try to put that cost onto those property owners makes it really, really difficult. So they provided us with the necessary easements, and that work will be started sometime yet this year. Lamel Plumbing is going to be doing the work, and I think that was at a cost of about $82,000. The property owners will have to pay their fair share to actually hook up to that line, but it is a line that is going to be brand new as opposed to the one that is kind of collapsing.
Yeah. Problems like that don't go away. You have to address
them
sooner or later.
And again, it's a situation that why do the property owners have to pay for the sins of maybe some poor designs long ago?
Okay. The other project, I think this was one that was going to be late summer, early fall, I think.
I think it's going to be October.
Okay.
When the bridge railings on South 6th Street will be replaced. And our city crews will be doing that just like they did on West Court Street. They are going to be identical, but much more attractive than what we have today.
Yeah. And again, can't do anything about those concrete abutments that... and I know a lot of people will ask about that. They think,
they will.
Why can't you remove them? And that's not your...
on South 6th Street, however, those abutments are quite a bit lower than the ones on West Court Street. On West Court Street, you know, I think that we're kind of scratching our heads trying to figure out what we can do to doll those up a little bit. And again, you know, we're in a climate where you utilize solvents to remove snow and ice and that kind of stuff, and any kind of paint that you would put on it, I'm afraid would deteriorate, and you'd have to just continually maintain them.
Those abutments are a safety feature, and you just can't take them out. That's not in the cards.
That's not in the cards, you're right.
All right. The topic that comes up periodically, and I'm sure you get questions about it all the time, the Dempster Property. What's the latest update there?
You know, the Environmental Protection Agency kind of has this under their umbrella right now, and they're the ones that are reviewing it. They've been here numerous times, going through different 50-gallon barrels of stuff, just bottles that aren't labeled of what we anticipate are chemicals, but we don't know. Could be a urine sample. Who knows? But
awfully big.
But it's. I think, Doug, that this is going to be a long, drawn-out process. The public needs to understand that. Is it an eyesore? Absolutely. Could we tear it down tomorrow if we were able to. We would really like to, but cannot do it. We don't own the property. We're starting to own property as that property comes up for tax foreclosure sales. We go to the tax foreclosure sale and we buy parcel after parcel. And there's some, I want to say 20 parcels, different parcels, in that footprint. So it's a time-consuming process. And that's the only way at this point that we're going to be able to take ownership, because the actual owner is in the wind and can't find him.
What's the potential for Superfund, brownfield assistance, and funding?
I think that's all on the table.
Okay.
I think that's all strong possibilities. We budget about $100,000 a year, and we'll continue to do that on an annual basis. But that only goes so far. That's not going to go very far in the scheme of things, of something that's going to take several $1 million to dispose of and tear down.
Okay. Code complaints. We're into the growing season. We're into the grass, of course, with a little bit of rain, gets up there pretty fast. And I know there's properties that periodically get complaints about why isn't it mowed enough, or what's the regulation on how high it can go.
I try to avoid the code department only because of their frame of mind this time of the year.
They have a big job, don't they?
Yeah, there are a lot of weed complaints coming in. There's a lot of notices that are sent out, and again, it is a process where you receive a complaint from a citizen, or maybe from the code enforcement officer that just drives by. Send out the notice that the property owner has a certain period of time on which to rectify it. If the property owner does not, then the city goes in and mows it and bills the customer. If the customer doesn't pay, put a lien on their property. Pretty simple. Yep.
And it's not an overnight process. You got to go through all the steps.
You got to go through all the steps.
Yeah. So, well, that's just something you do every day. The code enforcement, you have the code enforcement officer, you have the chief building inspector. Understood that you were, I think there was an ad for a third person, but I didn't know if that was going to be an office person or another code. And
well, we're in need of an office person.
Okay.
And so that'll be the next step. But the council feels, and we haven't taken that next step yet, just because of the budgetary process, but feels that there could be a need for a third code enforcement officer / building inspector.
I see. Well, I think now the city is completely transitioned from Nebraska Public Power District to AEP Energy Partners out of Ohio as your wholesale supplier. And not to get too deep into the weeds on the numbers and everything, but what's been the impact of that from a wholesale power cost standpoint?
Well, our cost savings, we feel, are what we had anticipated. We've had no service issues with AEP, and actually the cost savings is estimated in the neighborhood of 10% over where we were prior to our prior provider.
I see. And it kind of went in stages too, didn't you? Kind of move away like 30% one year, 30, and then completely this past January.
That is correct.
Everything. So,
yeah.
How much did that cold snap of not this past February but the year ago? How much did that maybe interrupt the trend you might have seen, because you had that major cost in there to take care of?
Well, it was over $1 million, and that made a big impact. Yeah. When you're talking about hopefully saving $200,000 to $300,000 a year over our previous provider, that takes a pretty big bite out of what your cost savings would look like. We were fortunate in that we had reserves on hand to take care of that situation, where we didn't have to pass that on to ratepayers like a lot of communities did. And so we felt it was necessary to try to maintain where we are today, or try to maintain where we were at that period of time without any kind of increases, just simply because we had the reserves on hand.
That annual cost savings, whatever it ends up to be, people might ask, what happens to that? Is it applied to lower rates totally? Do you apply it to other needed projects that you have coming up? How do you look at that?
I think what we'll do initially is try to build those reserves back again. Look, could this happen again? Yeah, it sure could. And it'd be kind of nice to have those reserves on hand. But at some point in time, I think the philosophy is that we would take a look at what ratepayers are paying today, and maybe we could lower those rates. I'm not promising anything, but it's certainly a possibility. However, equipment costs are always going up, and you still have to maintain all of your transmission lines. You still have to maintain your substations and everything else that goes along with running a community and providing electricity. So we'll take that into consideration too, just to make sure that we've got plenty of funds on hand just for the what-ifs.
I see. Have just about a minute left on our program today. You have a council meeting coming up on Monday night. Understand that one of the items on the agenda is possible property purchase or transition, or
actually no.
Okay.
There is a property that I think there are some investors looking at, and what we're looking at is a driveway off of Highway 77. This would be the property that is that we're talking about is at 6th and Sargent Street.
Okay.
Highway 77 has a variety of accesses. State Department of Transportation is not going to allow an additional access. The access would actually have to be on Sargent Street into that property.
Okay.
And so we're looking at what kind of process we need to go through to make that a reality.
All right. Stan, we'll see you Monday night then.
Thanks, Doug.